got quiet. So we had an 8 o'clock session this morning, and it's like, is everybody awake? And I think of the last session of a multi-day conference like this, and we're looking at the die-hard stalwarts of the industry in this room right now, because you stayed all the way to the bitter end. So congratulations on that. I hope you've had a great conference. And you know, I've been on the board for a while, and on behalf of the board, thank you for moving the mountains necessary to get here in person, if you are here in person. And Doug, especially coming across the border, has had quite an ordeal, actually, to get here, and sounded like a pretty rough ordeal to try to get back.
It was a fun morning.
But the conference literally would not have been the same without you. And so thanks so much for coming. I've had a great conference. I hope you've had a great one. And what does that look like? Well, for me, it's really reconnecting and networking with the movers and shakers in our part of the industry, because they're all here. And I've shared with a number of people that, you know, we go to the International Builder Show and there are 80,000 people there, but we'll go to the Best in Green Awards and there are 60 people. So right here in this room, we have way more focus on what matters to us in this little bitty conference than happens in all of the International Builder Shows. So it's what makes EEBA special, and what makes the EEBA Summit, for me, the can't miss summit for the year. And so I hope if this is your first time, I hope you're inspired to come back. If it's not your first time, I hope you'll bring some colleagues with you next time you come. And we're in Scottsdale. What are the dates, Nancy? September 20 through 22 in Scottsdale next year. And you know, why you'd want to leave Denver, I don't know, but Doug is very happy that we're moving it to Scottsdale, I'm sure. And so it'll be a really great, I promise you, another great summit. You know, maybe we got like 400 or 500 attendees all in the hybrid summit. And think of the energy if we could get most of those people in person next year. So thanks for your part in making this a great summit. Well, Doug, you're going to lay some wisdom on us here today. And we were going through kind of a dry run. I got to get my phone to come up. We're going through a little bit of a dry run earlier, and he's packed with content. But what I really encouraged him to do was to reveal the real Doug Tarry to us this morning. Because a lot of the content we've had for the last couple of days. And it's going to be there for you to go back and look at online over time. So Doug may skate right through a lot of these slides.
Yeah.
But what's really unique about Doug is I think he's motivated by his huge heart. And you probably heard my story. You know, I joined the Peace Corps to save the world. It must have worked because we're still here. You're welcome. And but I do think for all of us, what we do starts at a real value space. And that's what's amazing about Doug is how much he cares and what's important to him. And like me, for whatever reason, we ended up planted in the home building world. And so you bloom where you're planted, and you try to make a difference where you are.
Grow your garden well.
And I know no one in the industry that has done that as well as Doug.
Well, thank you.
And so you're going to get to see that today. And I have an official intro here that I'm planning on pulling up if I can, because I don't want to miss anything. But Doug's the president of Doug Tarry Limited, which is a high-performance home builder in southwestern Ontario, Canada. He's built more net zero and net zero ready homes than any other builder in Canada. He's currently developing a book called From Bleeding Edge to Leading Edge, a builder's guide to net zero homes. I've been on the bleeding edge for a long time. Anybody in the room been on the bleeding edge where you feel like, you know, maybe we weren't quite ready for prime time for that idea? Doug's the past president of the Ontario Home Builders Association and is technical chairman, a member of the Canadian Home Builders Association Net Zero and Technical Research Councils. And what you're going to find out is that, like, he's written a lot of the energy efficiency codes in Canada on behalf of the industry. So we have a real content expert up here, as well as a good guy. In 2019, Doug was the CHB Member of the Year nationally and was inducted into the Inner Quality Hall of Fame. I met Doug several years ago when I'm not quite sure how we found each other, but
Because Gord Cook said you had to come up to the spring training.
Oh yeah, that's it. So
and you did the keynote.
So I met in Canada. Met you in your home turf.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so he said, "Well, I want to come down and kick the tires on what you're doing." And he came down, and we knocked around. I think we had a bunch of model complexes at that time and a bunch of production lines. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he'll learn a lot. And what I didn't know is that Doug knew more about what I was doing than I did, and that he had a lot to teach me. And so that's where I think the great opportunity this morning is. He's curious, humble, and creative. He's driven by a desire to help others and to lead continuous improvement. You're going to love his message today. He's a charter member of the Builder Benchmark Group. If you guys are builders and you haven't heard about the EEBA Builder Benchmark Group, it's like a support group for high performance builders, but also financial benchmarking, best practices for not just building science, but sales, marketing, management, all based on the theory that we don't get better houses built in America if the builders building them are not successful businesses. And so I would really encourage you to reach out to Nancy or Aaron or Doug or me, anyone who's in the Builder Benchmark Group. There was a great session yesterday on that. I didn't get to attend it because I was presenting someplace else, but I heard that they were feeling the love in there.
It was a love fest. It was.
So if you want to be part of the EEBA Love Fest, you got to plug into the Builder Benchmark Group. I always look forward to talking with Doug. He's a shining face on those Zoom calls every month at the Builder Benchmark Group. When he's not there, I feel like it's like when the lead pastor doesn't show up on Sunday morning and you just kind of feel let down. And so I know you're going to love his message this morning, and take it away, Doug.
Thanks, Gene. I really appreciate that. Folks, I'm really glad to be here today. It was a journey getting here. I'm so glad I did, though. It's been a really fantastic conference. And you know what, to reiterate about the Builder Benchmark, I have met these people over the last year and a half on screen for a monthly meeting, and you get here and it's like, hi, my friend. It's good to see you, right? And to have that level of camaraderie with these people is just really something special. So I absolutely agree and concur to get after it.
So Doug, Greg, we were talking last night, and it's like, I feel like we're family, but we really just met. And I said, it's because we spilled our guts to each other on Zoom calls for a year. And so that's a bonding experience, but it really is like family, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. Well, listen, Gene, I've got a couple of goals for today. I hope to make people laugh a little bit. I want to share a journey with you. Hopefully I'm going to make you cry towards the end just a little bit, and give you some inspiration. So we're going to start off, I don't know if everybody knows, but Gene had a big birthday a couple of weeks ago. And so I thought I'm going to give him a gift, you see.
39 was tough.
Yeah, twice he's done it, I think. No, not quite. So Gene, this is the gift, and I'll explain it as we go, but I just want you to look inside the box and tell me what you see.
I see a floor and walls.
Okay. Yeah, that's about right. And then just hold on to the box and look over top of it. Do you see anything else?
I see a room full of people.
Okay, so what you've just done right there is you've gone from code to net zero or zero energy. But I want you to hang on to it for just a little bit longer, if you don't mind. And we're going to get started. So just hang on. We'll be right there. So Aaron, when we talk about this stuff in the 4-part webinar series we did, what do I always say? We're going to put the foot on the gas. We're going to go real fast, right? Okay, well, folks, today is a little bit different. It's going to be like a supersonic jetliner, okay? So what I'm going to say is I want you to fasten your seatbelts, put your tray table up nice and neat, and stow your electronic devices, because it's going to go super fast. I don't want you to miss anything, okay? So without further ado, I didn't name the company. I didn't even name myself. I was born on April 1st, 1964. I am an April Fool baby. My dad got there first, and Mom didn't talk to him for about 2 weeks because she was pissed at him. I was supposed to be Sean. I'm actually a chef by profession, so I have no idea why you want to listen to me today. I ran the London Major Junior Knights hockey team for 6 years. We have the history for the worst record in the history of the Canadian Hockey League, 3-60-3. And if you want to learn about marketing, try marketing a team that's 3-60-3, because I'm telling you right now, it's pretty tough. But we ended up a few years later, we were 1 win away from the Memorial Cup. So you can overcome things if you get after it. I returned to the family business after that. I am self-taught in design. I'm very passionate about building science, and a life lesson from my dad up in Algonquin Park, Ontario, Canada, is always leave the campsite better than you found it. So changing our paradigm is what we're really going to talk about today. I need a quick survey from you folks, okay? So here we go. Everybody, please put your hand up if you've built or worked on a net zero or zero energy ready home. Please raise your hand. Okay, now keep your hand up if it was under 1 air change per hour. Okay, keep your hand up if you did it in 39 hours. Okay, so yeah, what we have to do here, you see, is Gene, I need you to now throw the box away.
Should I recycle it?
You should recycle it.
Okay,
This is true. Actually, give it back to me over here, and I'm going to use it for a stand.
All right.
So what just happened here is we've changed our paradigm a little bit, because what do you see now?
Just people.
Just people. You can see the entire room, right? You're not isolated by the box. Let's see if this will play.
Our crew arrived here at 5:30 in the morning in Ontario, Canada.
We got here, it was like some concrete and a hole in the dirt.
That was it. But now, check this out. They built a home in like 6 or 7 hours.
It's incredible. They're going at it, building stuff. There's the electrical. They built the entire roof here and then craned it up on top of the place. It's just absurdly awesome.
It's pretty crazy. It's called Project Hope. So a young man passed away from cancer. The community heard about it. They're building a home in 3 days, selling the home, and all of the proceeds go to that family. It's called Project Hope. And you know what? I think they nailed it. Did you see that expression?
Oh, we lost the video there. He says, did you see the look on his face? That's Joe Kessler and Ryan Grams. They were from St. Paul, Minneapolis in Minnesota, and they came in to do the filming with us. We had an international film crew, eight cameramen and 13 cameras going at one time. And we did the build in like literally 39 hours was the blower door test, and it was 0.63 air changes. Now Gene's wondering, well, why the heck did he give me this box? And what was the present? Well, the present is actually the gift of foresight and the opportunity for us to change our paradigm. And the gift is what I'm hoping to give all of you today. So how did we do it? I call it the Carrie O'Brien effect. Carrie's a friend of mine. She used to work for me. And this is me with Carrie at Project Hope. And how we did it is, you see, Carrie didn't know that she couldn't do it because she was a planner. I didn't let my construction team anywhere near that build for the planning of it. Okay. Yeah, when we started getting into how to make the bricks and sticks put together, but the actual schedule was done by a planner who'd never done it before. So you young folks over here from the Solar Decathlon, don't ever think you can't do something. Because she did it. It took her 9 months. She said, don't ever make me do that again. But it was a lifetime experience for her, and I encourage you to have those opportunities. So changing our paradigm, 4 principles of modern design is what we're really going to talk about here today. And I believe we look at high performance homes and think, let's reduce our energy consumption. And I think we're looking at the wrong thing. And you started to hear that at this week's conference, right? I believe that there's really 4 principles that we need to look at and get real serious about. The first one is design for occupant comfort. The second one is ensure healthy indoor air quality. Third is construct climate resilient buildings. And the fourth is let's look at our carbon footprint and the total embodied carbon and start to look at reducing that. We also have to think about affordability while we're doing that though, right? We have to have people that can afford to buy our homes. So getting started, if you take nothing away from today and you think, yeah, that chef's total dummy, first one is have a really good water management plan. It's important. Second one is have a strong plan for air tightness. You can't go past the first steps without knowing this because it'll cause problems. Then the next step is design for the 4 principles. And then lastly, add the bells and whistles and keep it simple. Remember, if you put a rocket ship in the basement, you better be selling to a space scientist, because if it's a typical customer, you're going to have callbacks and problems. But water and air management are the two critical pieces. So I just encourage you guys to look at this. And by the way, as I slip through this really quickly, we did a 4-part webinar series. It's on the EEBA website. It's really good information. I encourage you to go back here as I slam through some of this. So water management plan, why is it important? Well, Gene, you know what happens if you get poly on the outside or inside and insulation on the outside and you get water in there, right? You get a poop sandwich.
That's right.
I love that grandbaby, but I don't really like cleaning up the poop.
You don't like the poop sandwich.
I do it because it's not fair to leave it for somebody else, right? Danielle, it's important. We got to take care of each other. They call him Mini-Me, by the way. So rainwater control, this is from Joe Stebrick. I'm going to pass right over it, but I want you to look at this one here. As much as 1 air change per hour, and we've tested this, we'll go through a wall assembly, okay, at the belt. So on the left, that was a pretty nice try. They were trying to get some work done, but if you look closely enough on the big piece of foam there, you can see it's actually cracked away from the tin, right? Well, if air can get in, so can water, and you got that poop sandwich, right? So for a few bucks more on the other side, I really encourage you guys to look at this type of product. It makes a big difference on how the home performs for getting water away from the house. Now, don't tell me it's hard to flash a window, because I taught 2 ladies in Puerto Rico. One of them never spoke English, how to flash a window, and I did it in about an hour. So it is possible, right? And if you have trouble with getting your teams and crews and you have language barriers or whatever, construction instruction, go to their app website. Air tightness plan makes a big difference. So if you're looking at this, I'm referencing Ontario code, but if you're looking at 3 air changes versus going down to 1 or 0.6, you're dropping it significantly on a code build home, but it's a lot on a net zero home. It's about 15% for code and 20% for net zero. It makes a big difference. So it's important that we look at that. If you can't get there, Aero Barrier, great sponsor that we're here this week. I'm doing a lot of work with them. We're just about to take on the Aero Barrier franchise in my area. But Gene, we've had homes go down as low as 0.22 air changes. Actually, we got one down the semi at 0.15. So if you can't get there, Aero Barrier, it's a great way to go. So principle 1. Occupant comfort. Does everybody know about Goldilocks? Do you know Goldilocks? Do you know the story? She was actually like a bit of a hooligan, eh? She went in and she broke the chair and she ate the food and slept in the bed. And, wasn't really very nice. And then Baby Bear comes in and he's thinking, I got a friend to play with, and she runs away on him, right? So she really seriously had some issues, right? And but there is a point to this. Why did she go for Baby Bear every time? It's because she was looking for the middle ground. She was looking for what we call the Goldilocks principle, and that's just right. So when we're looking at comfort, we really want to consider comfort as being try to get to the middle ground, right? Now, there's a great ASHRAE 55 program that you can use for figuring out comfort. We've had to do that on a few testing of homes, and we're looking at incorporating that more into our apartment buildings now. Moisture, though, is a really important one in managing humidity control. So again, I'm not going to do a lot on this, but we really want to get a humidity range that's in the roughly 40 to 60%. And that's also why, Aaron, what do we say about windows, right? We have to have triple glazed windows because that helps us with our moisture control. I'm not going to get into walls a lot today, but I will tell you that if you look at a wall system, it might be better off to back off on your actual wall detail and reduce the insulation a bit and beef up your window insulation detail. It's actually a significant improvement to performance if you do that.
So Doug, you mentioned a word that's foreign to this group, apartments.
Apartments.
What are you building?
I'm going to show you a little bit later on. They had that Architecture 2030 challenge. So we got there by 2019, but now we're doing it with buildings. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit later on. Right sizing of HVAC systems. It is extremely important, Gene. I've had lots of problems over the years where mechanical systems were just 2.5, 3 times the size of what the house needed. And I got so fed up that I actually started doing the designs for mechanical systems in-house and then telling the mechanical company what they were supposed to use. Now, here's the challenge with this, is that it's really important to get your sizing right. Otherwise, have you guys ever been in a house, you go, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold? Because you've got an oscillation cycle going like this, right? And what we really want to do is get a balance. So it's very important. And one of the big drivers on this is windows. And Aaron's heard me for 4 sessions talk about windows. Look at low solar glass, because what we can't have is uncontrolled heat gain, because that makes us have to expand our mechanical systems quite large for what's actually needed for cooling. or for heating, sorry. I don't want to have it the back way. So we don't want to have mechanical systems that are sized for cooling that are so much bigger than the heating load, because what you end up is a lot of comfort issues and you get that oscillation cycle. So we got to avoid that. Now, that being said, this is why intermittent solar gains are bad. Now, has anybody been really mean as a kid and used the magnifying glass on an ant? It's not very nice, right? But what if you're the ant, right? You know, everybody has been in a room. Come on, you know this. Has been in a room that's overheated, right? Because of the windows. So we have to really look at performance selection of the glass. I always say get a really low U value and a really low solar heat gain coefficient. Always get it under 0.3. It's extremely important. Now, ironically, in Canada, we prefer windows that gain heat. And I've had a 10-year ongoing fight with Natural Resources Canada. And ironically, on that front, I get hired by Natural Resources Canada to do work too. In fact, they actually underwrote the production of the first draft of the book. But if you look up on the right side here, it says ER22. This window with this glazing option does not qualify. I'm actually using Energy Star windows in Canada that do not qualify as an Energy Star window. They're not rated because I can't gain heat. That solar heat gain coefficient 0.17 to me is significantly more important than a window that qualifies. So I got an exemption put into the building code so I could use it. All right, the case for modulation. You guys have all seen this film, right? They're having a good old time. It's kind of like us right now. We're flying at about 30,000 feet right now, and we're going about Mach 1, okay? This is the importance of temperature control by modulation, right? Fan speed and modulation of the actual movement of air and the temperature itself is really important for performance. So this didn't exist, you see. We actually worked with Detson, another sponsor. They were here. And we developed with them a dual fuel hybrid heating system. So hybrid heating means you're using two sources of energy, basically a furnace and an air source heat pump. Dual fuel means that the furnace is actually gas, okay? This is a transitional technology. It's preparing us, it's future-proofing us for when we go to all electric. But why it was important to me is because the loads fit my needs. I'm building homes that are maybe 22,000 BTUs. So this combination gives me between 3 and 30,000 BTUs, which is why it's important. Fully modulating, set it and forget it. You know, it doesn't work with the Nest or the Ecobee or some of these other thermostats, Honeywell, whatever. It basically, we don't want the client touching it. We want to just say, pick a temperature and walk away, set it and forget it. We also did a program with Ryerson University on fuel switching. So being able to go from gas to electric using solar based on either the temperature, what the energy cost was, or wanting to reduce your carbon footprint. We just got that report out from them about April. So I'm going to flip through a little bit. The point is I've done stuff, I guess, right? Indoor air quality is a huge one. We do not have a program in Canada. I've been hounding the Indoor Air Plus guys to see if we'd come to Canada, and so far, no takers. And that's why we jumped all over the Healthier Homes awareness at your opening session, this conference. It's a great program. Really, Gene, I commend EEBA for bringing that forward. And so we put a ton of staff through this because we don't have a program in Canada. So, love this movie. On the right is Belushi, on the left is Aykroyd. Aykroyd's from Kingston, Ontario, good Canadian boy. And I love this scene in this movie because Belushi says, "What type of music do you have here, ma'am?" And she says, "Well, we've got both kinds. We've got country and Western." Right? Yeah. So, well, we've got both kinds of ventilation. We've got windows that open and a fresh air machine. ERV is what we use, and if you're a sensible builder, you're probably looking at ERVs in almost all cases. But why is fresh air important? Well, you guys have covered this a ton, so just real quick, like we are exposed to more chemicals in 2 months, Gene, than what our grandparents were in their lifetime. And it's getting worse, and we wonder why our kids are getting sick. So fresh air is incredibly important. Dilution is part of the solution. It also matters, though, what we're putting on our walls. So around the tables today, you see the graphenstone stuff. Thank you. I don't have to carry it home. I really appreciate that. Take it if you'd like. That'd be great. We are seeing a lot of people wanting to do these feature fireplace walls. It looks like monolithic stone, Gene, but you know, it's about that thick. So it's very easy to install. And by the way, it's absorbing carbon. 0 off gases, no formaldehyde, no VOCs. There's a really bad preservative called MI that we're really tracking and concerned about because it really, if you've got an asthma allergy against it, it can be deadly for you. So we're very concerned about what's going on the wall. And then you can make it look really pretty, like this. Oh, shoot. Hopefully I can get that to play. It's not going to play. All right, so this is actually a mortar feature wall, and the point of this is that the actual mortar itself is colored into the mortar, so the texture, you don't lose it, doesn't look like it's colored over. We worked on basement walls, developed the optimum basement wall for rock wool back, well, we did it in about 2011, 2012, but the case study came out in 2013. A lot of work on basements. I'm a code expert on basements. I like basements that work. I hate basements that don't. So very happy to help folks with their basement issues. They got challenges. Resiliency. So we're probably going about Mach 2 now, and we're headed over to Puerto Rico for just a little bit. Okay. Hopefully this is going to.
The first pictures now coming in from Puerto Rico after taking a direct hit. 150-mile-an-hour winds ripping buildings apart.
Roofs peeled from buildings, structures collapsing. Many of these homes not built to withstand any hurricane, let alone a Category 4.
This used to be part of the bridge that has now completely collapsed in the force of Hurricane Maria's wind. This town now completely isolated.
As you come into Barrio San Lorenzo, you can see the destruction. Crossing the river the first time is a bit unnerving. At night, it was time to play chicken on the road with our rental van. There's no lights to guide you, only blind faith.
And we're through. 32-inch on center 2x4s, and they are scabbed together halfway through. I can't believe this. It's got the blue skin on it. The roof was torn off in the hurricane, so FEMA installed these rafters. They didn't even use continuous pieces. There's only, what, 2 nails? Yeah, and 2 toenails.
Arriving at the job site, our team was eager to work. With a mix of experience and enthusiasm, we understood the importance of getting the job done. We always had one eye on the weather, looking for rain, and one on the clock, knowing our time there was limited. Sourcing materials was a constant challenge, and the wood was like nothing we'd ever experienced, wet and heavy, but we made it work. Our team worked like they were possessed all day, and by 3 o'clock we were done. And boy, did the beer taste good, or at least we think it did.
Okay, so we're live in San Lorenzo, and the roof's working amazingly well. We just had it sheeted this afternoon, so this is Nancy's house again, and it's passing the rain test because the rain is really coming down, man. Look at that. You can't hardly even see the mountain.
A few of us got to experience seeing the wild horses on Isla Viejas, dating from the time of the conquistadors.
It was a hard night last night because we were really concerned we weren't going to be able to get that third house in. And the young lads went over there and just started rock and rolling first thing this morning. And they're almost caught up to where we are now. We're teaching the locals about how to do all the fasteners. So now they're going to be able to do all of their own fastening. So if somebody else needs help with how to do it, we can make sure they've got the product available in stores, and then they can do this themselves. So they can make their homes stronger. What does hope mean to me is giving people a future, esperanza, that didn't have one at this time, and giving them a better life. And that's priceless, man. You can't buy this. You have to earn it. And I'm incredibly proud of our team of Canadians that came down here. That was very cool.
All told, we did 4 missions, and Gene, that mission right there, we did a whole home and 2 roofs at the same time as we were having families fixing their concrete roofs because we bought them equipment down there to help fix the roofs. And there was an elder couple there that the community was trying to take care of. And keep in mind, the missions, the first couple missions, there was no hydro. So at night when we were driving, it was pitch black, right? And so the folks that had maybe a little bit more money were running generators for electricity, and that's how they basically were surviving. It was months, like months before they actually had the bridge back in and electricity to that village. But
well, and I think it was hit by like back-to-back hurricanes, wasn't it?
It was. The first one came through about 3 days before Maria, and then Maria was just a leveler, right? It was so bad that the river, when it came back around, the river actually flowed backwards up into the mountain. It was just crazy, and that's why the bridge got blown away. But we had an old couple there that we were helping. We bought him new furniture. The bed had gotten wet. He had a bit of dementia, that sort of thing. Anyway, they had a back room off of their house, and that's where he had the generator. Well, the generator blew up, and he was injured. And unfortunately, by the time we got back for our third mission, he had passed away from the effects of the hurricane. So really tragic. Like the deaths were far higher than what was actually reported, and the trauma for the folks there. I mean, when I see hurricanes come through anywhere, it's sad, right? But we bonded with these people like crazy, and you know what? The team, we can't wait to go back.
Don't wait for another hurricane.
No, no. We learned a lot, and then this is the part about the climate's changing. And so Barrie, Ontario, they had a really bad tornado go through several weeks ago. And so we're actually helping the local homebuilders there with some detailing, and I've actually reached out to Construction Instruction to help us put together a detailing package of videos and that sort of thing for training about how to do it a little bit better. At the same time, Lytton, BC had 47.9, which is 119 Fahrenheit. A heat dome sat on them for about 5 days. And the town actually basically spontaneously combusted, and that's it on fire over there on the far right. And then same time, Europe's flooding, right? So our weather patterns are really changing, and we have to be very aware of that. Key thing is in Lytton, BC, and throughout BC, nearly half the people died in 6 days of what died in all of COVID to that point.
Really amazing.
Climate's kind of important, folks. It can really mess your life up fast. If we get a heat dome over top of Greenland, we're all in deep trouble.
Well, you know, Doug, sometimes I wonder if the public gets this whole climate change thing, but events like the heat dome, surely people are starting to connect the dots.
What was really bad, though.
Did you guys notice urgency in the voice of the secretary? And I think what's happened is that we signed on to Paris, and then we didn't do anything about it for 4 years, and we fell behind. And I think that Biden, you know, the day that she talked to us, she was up at NREL with the president. And there's a huge focus in the American government now to catch up. And that's the first time the Secretary of Energy has ever spoken to EEBA. And we've had a very long, like 3.5 decade relationship with DOE. And the fact that now we have the attention of the highest levels of government is not an accident. That this is a serious mission, and we're about to see serious resources. I think we're about to see fundamental change in the programs that we all work in, where it's going to be less about the HERS score and more about some kind of measurement of zero carbon. I know ResNet's trying to work on a carbon score. And what Doug's talking about here is reality. And I think we're so politically divided, and you know, there's so much denial going on about obvious things. But I think the people in this room understand what's happening and what we can do about it. And what you've done about it, Doug, is really incredible. You've had a huge impact on your nation.
You know, Gene, the takeaway for this is that I get concerned, and I'm glad to hear that the shift is starting to happen towards stepping a little bit away from energy and starting to look at carbon, because, you know, you can build a super energy efficient home. I'll use passive house not to pick on them. Lots of insulation in the walls, but if you're using the wrong type of insulation, you could blow your carbon footprint to completely away. You'll never catch back up. And so it's very important. I call it the sweet spot. We need to find the sweet spot where, you know, you can get to net zero. Yeah, that's really important. Also because it's healthier, more comfortable, more durable, all those good things, right? But we also want to do it in such a way that we're looking at our carbon footprint. And we're going to share a bit of that today too, quickly.
So Doug, in our decarbonization session yesterday, we talked about how we're working in a city in Fort Collins where they have a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is tomorrow. And they own their own electric utility. So what that means is that by 2030, everyone in Fort Collins will be working on zero emission energy. So it calls the question of how wise is it for us to go spend $35,000 or $40,000 on a big solar array to get to net zero, when by 2030 they're at net zero emissions, and therefore might we, in the effort to get to zero carbon, actually deploy some of the savings towards the affordability crisis that is also raging at exactly the same time. And so, when I look at what I've been doing my whole career at trying to get to zero energy, I remember calling up Joe Nebbia this summer and saying, Joe, you're going to have to talk me off the ledge. I think I've decided I've been aiming at the wrong thing. And if the grid's going to clean up, I'm not sure I want a zero HER score. And Joe said, you're exactly right. But where's the score we are looking for carbon? And it doesn't exist because we've had no leadership in the programs, because they were politically motivated to do nothing for 4 years. And I believe what we're going to see in the next 12 months is that's going to shift. I think witness the attention from Secretary Granholm, witness the focus from the Biden administration, and whether this big $3.5 trillion thing happens or not, whether we agree with it or not, massive resources are headed our way. And I think it's very important that we deploy them in a smart way that honestly might not be what we've been doing, Doug. And so
I would agree.
I do feel like I'm a little bit on the ledge. How can I be saying this? Because it's been what I've been about for my entire career. And yet I think we have to embrace it because the challenge is just too great.
So Gene, I don't want to take away from that. I'm going to actually cover it in a couple of minutes, but I want you guys to think in terms of something a little bit different here as well. Let's think in terms of the horses out of the barn and the damn barn's burnt down. The climate is changing and we have to change how we build. It's not just about reducing our carbon footprint. That's the insurance policy. We have to face reality, right? We have to build homes that are more durable and sustainable and can withstand different weather events. Because folks, they're happening everywhere. They're happening. St. John's, Newfoundland just took a direct hit last Friday. Do you know, my buddy, he had his roof of his building that he was under construction got blown off partially. And you know why? Because they didn't actually do a dropped gable roof connecting the gable overhang back to the previous truss. And that's such a simple detail, but it makes the roof 10 times stronger. You know, slightly bigger fasteners. This is part of our world, folks. I cover it in the web series, so I'm not going to do it today. But we've been doing a lot of research with Western University and ICLR up in Canada. And that's part of what we're looking at doing. So this is the project. It's pretty cool what we're doing. And here's the thing. We have to make it affordable. We have to make it fast on the job site. So a lot of push right now to say, thou shalt use hurricane clips all over the place. Why? There's other choices. This screw, this particular one happens to be Simpson Strong Tie. 8 seconds. So which one do you think the framer wants to do? It takes 1 minute to put in a hurricane clip. 10 nails. That's what the guy with the gun was doing. Down in Puerto Rico, we kind of didn't want him to use guns, so we had a lot of rookies, so hammers. And in fact, the one lady I took down there, Sarah Stevenson from Western, she was one of the engineers. I said, Sarah, I'm going to give you the greatest opportunity for learning right now. What we're going to do here is by the time you go back and you have to talk to people about your details, you're going to be able to tell them one of two things. Look, I've done it, it's a pain in the ass, but it's important. Or, you know what, I've done it, it's not that hard, don't complain. Now here's 4,000 nails, a hammer, and a couple hundred fasteners. Get going. The second time she went down with me, her details were a lot simpler because she learned. And we piloted this screw down there, and Western researched it, and it's got roughly the same, maybe even slightly better hold down than what the hurricane clip does. So why are we mandating something when there's an alternate choice that's better? And that makes me afraid. And cheaper. What do you think your friend? Hire framers that are 6'5" too, by the way. It really helps because he just stands there just like this, right? But and he was actually one of the guys that went on there. So here we are, we're up to carbon now. So here's the really simple method on this. If it grows and you put it in the house, it's good. And if you mine it out of the ground and process it, it's not good. Okay, it's kind of really that simple. So how do we make choices that can make that work? We also have to think long term. If we don't build a durable home and 30 years from now, we have to throw it in the landfill, we didn't really help our carbon footprint. So we have to look at total life cycle carbon footprint, not just the energy consumption of the buildings. And that's this is the carbon drawdown. Chris Magwood, if you missed a session yesterday, it's on the website. It's a fantastic session. Chris really knows his stuff on this. I've been working with him for a year and a bit now, really getting our minds wrapped around it. But it's incredibly important that we look at carbon drawdown. So wood is good, still not so much. Concrete really bad. So looking very quickly at embodied carbon and what can happen right now, if you're looking at typical high UEC, which is unfront embodied carbon, I'm just going to say it's a big number. Okay, what we're looking at doing right now is we're trying to get from the 90-ish down to getting closer to going into zero. So this is actually one of my homes that we had tested out. And so if I was looking at typical code built with not really paying much attention here, that's where you'd end up being potentially, right? And right now we're almost half of that, and we're aiming to be within 12 months to be half. 24 months we want to go lower than that, but we're actually this is where we're going. And so that is going to mean, okay, do we have to get rid of brick? But it's a tough conversation in a market that prefers brick, but we have to look at it. Again, there's all kinds of information available. I really push you back to Chris's slides because they're fantastic. We actually wrote the Solar Ready spec for Natural Resources Canada back in 2008. So we've been doing Solar Ready for a long time and solar overall. Right now, we're working with Detson on decarbonization or mechanical systems. So they had their Supreme electric furnace out there this week. We're testing it in a model home. And that's what's really cool about the dual fuel hybrid is all of a sudden you drop the dual fuel part and you're there. You're electrified. You're there. Right. So in 15 years, when folks have to replace their furnace, put in an electric furnace and you're done. Right. You don't have to rethink anything. Project Hope, we ran it on solar. It was really cool. We actually got, I think it was about 30 watts of solar from a full moon at night. Whew, enough to charge about five watt bulbs, right? Yeah, I'm not kidding. It was really cool. But we ran, and then so after this house was built in a field basically, right? There was no electricity, no gas, nothing like that. And so we kept one of those units, and it ran the building through July through the heat wave on solar on about 30 amps, I think it was. We ran it on. The whole home only needed about 65 amps for everything. But you know, developers have a role to play as well, and we're also a developer. We're one of the largest developers in my neighborhood, anyway. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of inspiration on how you can actually, because Aaron and I have talked a couple times about. Of course, he's leaving, so I pull his name out. Gene, we've talked a couple times about what do you do for carbon offsets, right? Okay, I can't quite get there, so we'll do a carbon offset. And my comment is, well, can we work with the developers and do some things other than just put grass in or like stuff that's not really necessarily good because it needs maintenance. So on the left here, that's a mature swim pond, about 25 years old, and it looks like it's been there forever, right? That osprey that's sitting right there, they're nesting on an osprey nest that's on a pole. My brother Greg took the hydro poles that were being thrown out and he planted them with a nest box on top. It took about 4 years, but we have a nesting pair this year. The wildflower field, that's a field of poppies, and we had tourists coming to take pictures of that this year. So you imagine as a developer, and you've got people coming to take pictures of the osprey and the wildflowers. Like that's, to me, what is really critically important. So our new slogan is we don't just build for humans, because we think it's really incredibly important that we take care of the wildlife as well. That's part of what makes it so important for nature. And you know what? Your customers will pay more for this. It's part of lifestyle. Because what we do then is we use those paths for trails. 7-8 years ago, and we started on the path for putting trails in. There weren't any except for the one that we put in. And we just said to the city, we're going it alone, because if you're not on board, then we're just doing it. And they finally got on board. They did the big study and all that good stuff. Well, now I can go out my door, and within 4 minutes, I'm on a trail that I can do about a 30-kilometer ride on my bike, including an elevated park, the first one in Canada, which is an old railway bridge. And it's super cool. Life Arc. So, Gene, we have some friends from Texas. They had a pretty good plan.
Doug, you don't know this, but I am a closet Texan.
Okay.
You have to go underground in Colorado to be a Texan.
So now everybody knows that the secret is out then, eh?
Yeah, I never tell anybody but my closest friends.
There you go. There you go. Well, they got smacked in the teeth pretty good this year, didn't they?
No doubt.
And I've had many people say, well, why do we need to worry about that in Ontario? We've got a really good grid. Time out. I remember in 1978, and I was 14 years old, and we had this massive snowstorm come up through the Ohio Valley, and it wiped us out for about 4 days. And I was there with my eldest brother. He's 15 years older than I am, back from university. And I was there with my grandpa Tom, and he was a British cavalry veteran, and he had post-traumatic stress disorder, so he was nuts, right? And I'm stuck in this house with him for 4 days. And the only reason we really survived is because my brother Greg was an outdoorsman and knew how to make things work. We had a fireplace in the basement. We cooked on it, kept the house warm enough so we didn't freeze, right? But it was about 6 weeks after our company Christmas party that my dad used to have all the trades to. And, you know, he just had the liquor flowing, right? That's back in the day when you could do that. So in the basement was a case of Captain Morgan rum. And Greg and Gramps got into that. And so what happened was about every hour or whatever, Gramps would say, son, can I have another shot of that Dr. Morgan for my stomach's sake? I'll never forget it, right? Well, so Greg would help himself too, right? They're figuring, well, we've just got nothing else to do. After about
Probably would have been good fuel.
You know, it's a good thing they didn't burn the house down.
Yeah.
After 4 days, I see my dad coming home and he's carrying the luggage. And he's just walking in the door, and Gramps says, son, the hound drank all your rum. He totally threw my brother under the bus, right? Why is this story important? Well, what do you do when it's an all-electric building and the hydro goes out, right? You guys experienced it. How do you survive? In 13, I think it was, we had a big power outage in the East Coast, and it was Ontario. Somebody missed a switch or something like that in Ohio, and we were down for a couple days, right? It was bad. And it was right in a heat wave. Never happens when it's perfect weather and you got the windows open, right? It's going to be the extreme events that it's going to happen. So we're developing a program called LifeArc. And ultimately the goal is to get it developed to the point where we can bring it back to the industry as a program. And it should be a companion piece for zero energy, because I really think it's important. If you lose your building and your building goes to a landfill, we've got a problem, right? If your homeowners die because they can't survive in the building, we've got a problem. So we have to think resiliency to the next level. So LifeArc. The first one is, and I saw a building just like this in Denver yesterday driving around. The 70s called. They want their details back. This sucker's got concrete floors. They actually go right out onto the balconies, okay? So you imagine how that floor is going to feel in January, 6-8 feet in. It's still going to be cold, okay? They got crappy tin windows, right? Just there's everything you could possibly think of that's wrong. And one of the best pieces of advice that Dr. Strebeck has ever given me is, you know, there's nothing wrong with a flat roof that a 112 pitch can't fix, right? So guys, be careful of flat roofs. They're kind of a problem, right? Versus, everybody heard about the Architecture 2030 Challenge? We all know about that. This building is one we're building right now. It's going to open soon. And it's designed to be meeting the Architecture 2030 Challenge. I was in it in the heat wave a few weeks ago. We had a reporter coming in to talk to us. He's doing a story on it. It was 95 degrees outside, and in the building, it was about 83. The air conditioning wasn't running. The mechanical system had not been brought up online yet. But it's because of what we're doing. And a big part of that is, yes, you got to have the continual insulation. You got to have great windows. You've got to have nice overhangs. Net zero, reducing our carbon footprint. This has got way less carbon footprint than that building I just showed you. But we're also compartmentalizing. So we're working with our partners at Aerial Barrier to make sure that we get every one of these units under 1 air change per hour. That's incredibly important. It's important for a bunch of reasons, but number one of which is something that Aerial Barrier really doesn't talk about. Safety, life safety. If you can smell your neighbor's cooking, Gene, you're dead before the fire gets there. Compartmentalization, if you're building an apartment building, if you're building a semi, if you're building towns, it's incredibly important. And most people don't look at it. They look at the whole building and they don't look at individual suites. And you have to look at the suites, and it's so easy to do. For a few $1,000s, you can bring Aerial Barrier in and get it done, right? And you've got a safer, healthier, more durable building. So I recommend, if you haven't looked at these guys, to look at it. Now, I've got details, and they're in the series where you can actually compartmentalize without using it, and you can get under 1 air change. It's more work, but it can be done. And I remember when I was doing it, the building official says to me, well, why are you doing that? It's not required by code. And he's a friend of mine, Jamie Okowski. And I says, oh, Jamie, I'm not building the code. You're worried about fire, but I'm worried about smoke, right? So just think about that a bit. So LifeArc, this building on the left here is actually, it's in a project, it's a pilot project in Canada with CHBA Net Zero MURBs, so now multi-unit residential building. And the idea is that it's the only one in Canada out of the 6 buildings that's an apartment style building. But we want to see if we can get net zero MURBs now into a program and build them. But it's going to be twinned with the bigger building to run on geothermal. It's going to have solar on it. It will have some type of a backup plan on it. I don't know if we're going to go batteries right now because they're pretty expensive. We're going to rough for batteries, but we're probably going to do a biofuel micro cogen. Because I think, you know what, it might be okay to have a little bit of a carbon footprint to save the building and save your customers. And then sequestering the water, the rainwater, store it and be able to pump it back in. So we're going to use it for irrigation purposes, but in an emergency, we can pump it back in and have a pipe where they can go and turn a spigot, get water to flush their toilet, because it's not very fun. You're in the building for 5 days, you can't flush your toilet, right? That's kind of nasty. So we have to think in terms of this. I think I went through all that. So, now, Gene talked a little bit about vertical integration. So I looked at where we're going and thinking, okay, we're building apartment buildings, right?
I think that was in our pre-talk. I don't think we talked about that.
All right. So we're doing vertical integration. I think I said I got so upset about mechanicals that I took mechanicals in-house. 8 weeks ago, I found out I was losing my mechanical company. They weren't going to service me anymore because they couldn't get trades for the territory. 6 weeks ago, we started our own mechanical company. Within another 4 weeks, we think we'll be fully operational. So we've been really scrambling, but it's part of the vertical integration piece. And we could do it because we understood mechanical because we're already doing the designs, right? And the guys that are working for us now are really happy because they love our culture. They really feel that they're part of something special. But you know, that's kind of taking lemons and making some lemonade, right? But it's part of what's called vertical integration. And, you know, and Sam Rashkin in his course, he talks about looking at panelization, and we've been studying it for a couple of years and thought, well, you know, you build a factory, right? Then you got to move the panels. You know what you're shipping when you're shipping the panels? What's 80% of that panel? Air. So we thought, well, let's move the air 1 kilometer instead of 50. So we're actually creating, my nephew's going to be the general manager of it. He's getting it up and running now. We're creating a mobile panelization plant. We're calling it MAP. Or MAPS, mobile automated panelization plant system. So ultimately the goal is to automate it. But we think that this is good for small builders, you know, building 50, 60, 80 homes. Maybe they partner with another builder so that you don't have to rely on so many framers because it's really getting to be a problem. It's more efficient, there's less waste, all the good things, reducing the carbon footprint, but it's also speed. So for the apartment buildings, like I just showed you, the next series is being done with a company called Element 5. Has everybody heard of what's cross-laminated timber? Y'all are familiar with that? So I can get a 6-inch slab that's my floor and a ceiling out of this stuff, and they're doing all the structures. So one of the problems with apartment buildings, it takes about 3 weeks to build the elevator shaft for a 4-story building. It goes up in a day with cross-laminated timber. That's a big game changer, right? So they're doing the structure, and then we're doing the infill with our company that we've set up. So that's the apartment story, Gene. And what we did is we set this all up, and this is where I'm saying about betting on the future. We set up a subsidiary company called the Carbon Reduction Company. I wanted to make sure there was no misunderstanding about the purpose of that company. The Carbon Reduction. It's like the Ohio State, right? I get them on the football feed. The Carbon Reduction Company. Any questions about what I'm intending to do with this? Okay, good. So we're fine there. Tiny hope. Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to be able to give back, and we're going to talk about social contract in a second. We're doing this project open book. In other words, if you want the details on it, we'll put a package together when we're done, and we'll send it down to you. This is a brownfield site. It's a former tool handle factory, and we're cleaning it up. We've actually finished the remediation. We hope to build this next summer. So you already seen that I built the home in 39 hours. So what could be stupider than building a home in 39 hours, guys? We're going to do 12 of them as a race against other builders. That's the goal. We want to bring other builders. Here's your entry fee. Here's your kit. This is the date. Okay, let's go. The only rule I've gotten so far is that you can't use a helicopter. Some of them will have to be built off-site, so we're considering building the bungalows off-site and the 2 stories on-site, and then that way we don't have to have the time delay. The arrow bearer piece is going to be important though, because there's only so many arrow bearer guys, right? And so what we're thinking about doing is you can buy extra credits, right? So I'm going to put another $3,000 on the table, but I get a 30-minute delay for that guy, so I can get the arrow bearer first. That might be kind of fun, right? And if you're going to do stupid stuff, you know what you got to do, Gene? You got to film it.
There you go.
You got to film it, right? So we're going to have a film crew come in and just see what this, and maybe HGTV will take a peek at it. I don't know. I don't really care. It's fun, man. It's just part of like our DNA about doing stupid stuff. Just an example of what the building's going to look like. Creating a social contract. We really believe, and I think there was a session here about this, and taking care of our employees. We really believe in taking care of our employees, taking care of our community. So people, planet, profit. It's incredibly important. We actually have 3 revenue streams for donations that we use. One is for big projects like Tiny Hope. One is we donate almost like a tithe to our community foundation, and they use the money. And then one is I have a director of community engagement that we've just appointed. My sales manager took the role, and she's got a budget around maybe 200 grand. It's like, go spend it, but don't cut a check. I want you to leverage it. I want you to get other people involved, and it's about community engagement. And so she's taken it on, and then it could be as simple as we had a girl that had her running shoes that she worked really hard to buy were stolen, so we replaced them. There was a family that had a son that got injured in an accident a year and a half ago. They built a pretty crappy ramp, so okay, we'll go build them a better ramp. Things like that, just to help the community, because there's a lot of people in need, and we're really blessed. Everybody in this room is really blessed by every opportunity that we've had. So I think it's very important that we not just look at our planet and not just look at our community, which is very important, but also our employees. So we're now setting up a retention fund, if you will, a shit hits the fan fund, trying to put about $2 million away over the next 4 years, so that if we get into a major recession, we don't lose all our key employees. Yeah, there's the odd one. It's like, okay, I can let that person go, but I've been through a recession and we managed to hang on to all of our employees. And we've had this conversation. It's really tough coming back out the other side if you don't. And you lose a ton of opportunity on the backside if you had to go find and retrain people. It's so expensive to retrain people. So our culture is a little bit different. And now we're moving towards ESOP, which is an employee share ownership plan. My siblings have all retired. I'm the last guy standing, and I'm like, I want to get paid out. What's my retirement plan? Well, I got to have the employees take the company over. So that's kind of the goal. Oh, this one's kind of important. Why build a 100-year home? So we're getting close to wrapping up. We're coming towards the airport now. Remember the 4 principles. We talked about them today. It's really important. I believe that we've got a moral obligation to make sure that these homes can last through a variety of different problems that we're going to face. And we're going to face them one way or the other. This was a home. I put my daughter into this home, but I fixed it first. And this was one my dad built. You know, the fabulous cantilevered kitchen, guys. Anybody seen that detail? We used to build them all the time. You know what the builder would say? Keep your sink running, a little bit of water in the wintertime so your taps don't freeze, right? Why would you build that up north? I mean, that's crazy, right? So we had to fix this building, and about a fifth of the building ended up going to the landfill. I was so pissed off about that, but we made it healthy, and they're going to be in that for hopefully a good long time. And my daughter's got health issues, so giving her a fresh air machine and getting rid of the mold and using the graphenstone paint, which blocks mold and fungus and all that good stuff. And she's like, you know, Dad, I feel pretty good. Well, my grandbaby's in there too. You think that's not important to me? Everybody's got grandbabies out there somewhere, guys. So 1991, I'm almost done here. It was a watershed year. It was a fantastic year for music. And you know what? In the book, in the appendix, there's a list. It's a quick top 10. But it was the year that Nirvana came out with Smells Like Teen Spirit. And if you ever, just the first time that blasted through the radio, man, that was something else. But it was a watershed year in politics. And I so wish we could go back to this way of thinking. Bush Sr. and Mulrooney got together and they did the acid rain treaty, right? And they put the groundwork for the framework on convention for climate change. It was actually passed by the two of them the following year. And I don't think we've really done a darn significant thing since, because we keep fighting each other. And it's so disappointing. So, you know, the times nowadays seem to be, I don't agree with you, so you're my enemy. We got to stop that stuff. We just got to figure out how to get along better. So we can't count on the politicians. It's great. I'm hearing what I'm hearing right now. But the reality is that politicians think in 2-year cycles. When I wrote my strategic plan for my company, I wrote them a 33-year strategic plan to get us to the 100th anniversary of our company. That's the type of long-term thinking that we have to employ. We got heat domes that are killing hundreds, the wildfires. You guys have experienced all of this. I don't really have to get into detail, but I am very concerned about Greenland. When you start to get rain at 10,000 feet, they didn't even have devices for measuring the quantity of rain because it's never happened. That should be really concerning. And now you've got the Atlantic current is slowing. That thing stalls, man. That movie, The Day After Tomorrow, it could be a reality. This is serious stuff. But we've still got climate deniers in power. So why should we build a 100-year home? Because we must. We've just got to do a better job of looking at all of these points. Why? That's Corbin, my grandbaby. That wasn't poopy diaper time. That was just he was having fun with me, right? I don't have all the answers, guys. None of us do, right? But I know if we can work together, we can move mountains. We got to share our successes and we got to discuss our failures. And I'll come back to why the builder benchmark is so important for builders, because we discuss our failures and we build upon our successes together, Gene. I mean, it just, if we're going to solve this, it's by having groups like this. And I have to say, and I said it yesterday, you know, there's small builders, there's mid-sized builders, and there's large builders. I hope we never get to the point where we break out, separate from that, because I love the chemistry of having the different levels of builders and the different experiences together and how we can help each other out. I mean, is that not cool? That's cool. I look forward to it every month. It's must-see TV. I never want to miss it. And I want you to remember 360 and 3, okay? I'm up here telling you of a massive failure in my life, 360 and 3. You think that wasn't embarrassing? I got threatening phone calls. My wife wanted an unlisted number, but we got through it, right? Learned a ton about marketing too. We really did. And I wrote about it in the book, and I'm dedicating that piece to the youngers here, because a couple of months ago, we were having a conversation at the Builder Benchmark, and you were trying some new stuff and you were pretty scared. And I'm like, just go for it. You'll be fine. It'll be fine. But working together, we can create hope for our children's children. And so it's at the point in the day here, we're coming in for the landing now. And I have to introduce you to Angela, okay? So this is our film Hope. This is the trailer for it. Hopefully it plays, and I'll talk a little bit about it afterwards.
You got trees in front of everybody and told me I was the most magnificent creature you'd ever met. And he asked me to be his wife. And when I said yes, everybody cheered. I don't wanna go slow with you, but you asked me to. Johnny was an incredible goalie. When he was in his soccer net, that was his sanctuary.
Every game, every week when I make up the game sheet, he's still on our roster.
That's where the whole world disappeared. We're starting brand new careers, and we said we're going to live in this house for 5 years, and then we'll be on our feet again, right? Johnny will have a higher position as a building inspector. I hopefully will have a permanent position as teacher. And we're going to build another house. We had a plan, and we had each other. Then cancer came along, so I thought it was all over. I thought all our plans were all over. And then Doug came to me and said, this is really weird, but I feel like your husband wants to build a house. Does that make any sense to you? Yes, that's Johnny.
When hardships happen, when challenges arise, you don't have to wait for government. Communities like St. Thomas, you don't have to ask them twice. In fact, sometimes you don't even have to ask them. They just start doing.
He builds me a house all the way from heaven. Nothing more romantic than that, is there?
Our little film took 4 years to do. The director, Aaron, because this film is about death and cancer and a little bit of betrayal and radon and building science and net zero and caring for each other and about developing hope. And Aaron, our director, he did the Black Donnellys, Black Gold, Red Ryan. He's doing Ace in the Scout right now. And really, really very brilliant director, but he had 3 family members die while he was filming, doing the editing of it, all from cancer, including his mother-in-law, which was my wife's best friend. And so he would go a little bit into it and he'd have to stop because it was so hard to do. Our little film just won at Honoros Film Festival monthly in New York, and it's going to have a showing in New York City later this year. So we've come in for our landing. We're done with the Mach 2 thing. It is Q&A time, Gene. And what I'm going to do.
You did it.
I told you I'd put the pedal down. I'm going to just play a slide deck here of the build while we take questions, if that's okay. And we're just going to make sure that there's no sound so we can take questions. Here we go. So this is from the build.
So Doug, we're going through a dry run this morning, and we got through 70 slides, and I said, you know, they're all great, and it's important that they're online for people to go deep if they want to. But what I thought we missed was, who's Doug? And surely by now we all know that there's something a lot deeper than being a builder about this. So why do you do it? What took you to Puerto Rico? What engaged you with hope? What causes you to move forward with tiny hope? What is it that drives Doug Tarry?
There's a couple things. First one is we were really blessed as a family. We would go to Algonquin Park and we would canoe in the summer times. My dad used to work up there, that sort of thing. And so we'd be paddling away and be getting tired because, you know, this was a marathon for us. We would do the whole park, north to south.
This is in a canoe.
Yeah, a couple of canoes. And, you know, you'd be going hard. And so you'd be like, Dad, can we take a break? I'm tired, right? He's like, well, switch. So you're paddling like this. He'd say switch because a change is just as good as a rest. And then I don't know if you ever get juicy fruit gum down here, but you get a tap on the elbow with the paddle and there's a stick of juicy fruit gum on there. And that was your reward for shutting up and keeping going. And then we'd get to the campsite and he'd make us clean the campsite, even if it wasn't ours. He says, son, you always leave your campsite better than you found it. And so we would go in and we would do a whole clean of the campsites. And that just, those two things were mentally bombed into my brain, right? But then it was probably about 5-6 years ago, we had an issue with radon in my town. And it went really badly between me and the other home builders. And I ended up getting into a very bad depression. And I literally went to Johnny Norton's funeral and I was really, really down, right? Proud person, you know, and I'm walking through and the family's helping us. We'd given some money because the Nortons had not had insurance. They'd lost it in the transition of his job, right? And so they were in pretty desperate shape. And I'm standing there and the family's thanking us for helping. And I'm saying, I don't think I'm done yet. And then I get in front of Angela and I see this, you know, beautiful, strong woman and she's just crushed, right? But she's standing there and she's taking it. She's talking to people and I'm right in front of her. And it's like, he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Doug, if you help my family, it's going to help you get back. And right there in that instant flash, we were going to build this home for this family. We sold the home, gave them the money, right? So that they could keep going and she could take care of her babies. And that was the change. And then I had this situation where the hurricane in Puerto Rico happened. And I saw this guy throwing paper towels saying, you're fine. You know the guy I'm talking about, right? He's throwing paper towels, you're fine. And I'm seeing this damage on screen and I'm like, that's not fine. That's serious destruction. Now you guys get a hurricane down in Louisiana or Houston or whatever, you're on the mainland. You can get trucks coming down, you know, the hydro trucks coming down from Ontario and we send guys. You're out on an island in the middle of nowhere in Puerto Rico. These guys were in really desperate shape. So I had to go. And the first mission was a triage mission. And we're literally saying, you've got to clean your streets up because you're going to get rats. But it was just like, I'd come off of the one build. Well, what are you going to do next, Doug? Oh, I guess I'm going to Puerto Rico. Why Tiny Hope? Because the need's there. It's actually addictive. It's incredibly addictive to give back. And once you kind of get a taste for it, it's really tough to not do. And you guys over here and all of you in the room, I just encourage you, get involved and do stuff. I'm asking you join the Hope Army. That's my goal from today, is I'm asking you to join the Hope Army, because together we can do really cool things.
Well, and the bad joke about being in the Peace Corps, I'm a child of the 70s, and there was a term that you don't hear much anymore, but it was about being socially relevant. And I graduated as a senior in civil engineering, and I'm going, well, that's not very socially relevant. And then you go to a country, I went to Honduras, and they didn't have a road to the richest agricultural valley in the city or in the country. And they had a starvation problem. I thought maybe it is socially relevant. And I think what Doug's life example is that building homes is socially relevant.
It is, it absolutely is.
That you don't have to be in a nonprofit. You don't have to be in government. You don't have to be in a church. You can actually be a builder and you can make a difference.
And you don't have to wait for any of them. You don't. You can do this yourself. It's not hard.
And to me, that's the inspiring part of who Doug is. And that's a part I wanted to get out today because he's an example. And I'm the worst guy in the world to do this interview because I get choked up on this stuff. But you're an amazing example.
Thank you.
So questions? We have Vanna here with the microphone.
Oh, there's silence in the room. Oh my.
I turned it on now. That's a good sign.
Aaron, I don't think I've ever left a room silent before.
No, I have to make up a question.
Is that good? Is that good or bad?
Yeah, that was heavy. Well, one of the things, Doug, I think you're hiring a sustainability leader for your company. Who's that great gal I think you told us about?
No, I am hiring a sustainability officer. I hired a young lady to take over for me for research and innovation.
That's right. So she's the research and innovation person. But I think you're seeing that you're a private builder in Canada. You're not a public builder. And you're starting to look at putting together a corporate social responsibility message, a sustainability report, having a sustainability officer at your company. Why should the rest of us be thinking about doing that? And how do those good things that we're doing, because we've kind of asked you to talk about this, but most people don't know what Doug Tarry Homes is up to. Why should the rest of us be thinking about carbon, be thinking about social impact, be thinking about being socially relevant, be thinking about putting this together in a sustainability report? That's my question.
Has anybody ever heard of the work of Dr. Edwards Deming?
The Toyota guy, right?
Yeah. He's the guy that went into Japan and helped them rebuild their economy. And then in the 80s, he came back and he rescued Ford. Ford called his job one. That was based on Deming's work. Dr. Deming has a famous quote. He says, you don't have to change. There's nothing that says that you're entitled to survive. Right? Our world is changing. And so I'm looking at how it interacts together. And okay, why would I share my details with other people? Because they're needed. I don't care if I share them with my competitors here. If you can build it as well, that's fine. I'm lucky I've got land and I've got a different philosophy and we're known for it. But me going and helping with the folks in Barrie with their details, the reason I'm bringing this lady Miyoko on is because we're not able to do it fast enough. So we're literally going to be packaging a lot of our stuff, writing reports and being able to ship it out to other builders because I just see the need. Codes are too slow. So we have to change how we do it. We have to share. And you know what? I'll get something back. I'm talking to these guys about working on a basement wall with them, right? At Tim O'Brien Homes. And they've got this really cool app that they want to show me. And I'm like, that's cool. Let's get after that and see where it goes, right? Wheels round, man. The more you put out, the more you're going to get back. So Chief Sustainability Officer and somebody to manage our research and innovation. Like, we are so far out on the thin edge of the wedge. That's why I love, again, the Builder Benchmark. I get to talk to like-minded crazy people.
I was about to say you're next, because I think tackling an HVAC contractor, and the first place I go is, well, if the other guy couldn't get help, how are you going to get help? And then you get the answer that, well, it turns out if you treat people right, you can get help.
Yeah.
And the willingness to dive into panelization yourself. And what didn't come out, I don't think, on the slides, is it's on a truck.
It's on a truck.
Totally self-contained panel that they drive up to a development and bam, and when they're done, they go to the next one. And I think he's absolutely crazy in the best possible meaning of that term, because he's literally thinking outside of that box. And he's doing stuff I'm afraid to do. You know what I always tell people is, the first time we do something, I'm in the highest dumb tax bracket in town. It's just really hard to innovate. It's costly. And it's like I can only handle like one of those at a time. But Doug is like all in all the time. And I think all of us on the Builder Benchmark groups kind of sit back. You know, I remember these old speaker, you know, when stereos were a thing, speaker commercial where this guy sitting in a lounge chair and there's a giant speaker and his hair's blowing back. That's kind of how I feel on a Zoom call with Doug. It's like, you know, this barrage is coming at me, and it causes pause for reflection. Let me tell you that.
But you know, Gene, I think that's also why it's so important to share, because I get we're out there, but we got one planet we're going around on here, guys. And if I can figure it out first and share it and get other people to do it, then maybe we got a fighting chance. And maybe somebody else is going to figure out that other detail that we need, and they share it, and we got a fighting chance. And you start to build all that together, and then you really got something. So,
but Doug Tarry Homes is too small to save the planet.
On our own, yeah. Yeah.
The one.
Well, you know, there's this story about the old man in the sea. And he's standing there and he's throwing the starfish back. He goes a little bit further up the beach and he throws this next starfish back, right? And this young lady comes up beside him and she says, well, why are you throwing them back in the water? Well, because I need to save them. Well, you can't possibly save all of them. Yeah, but I can save that one.
So your businesses are too small to save the planet. And so is mine. But you know what? The builders in this room are doing it. And the builders at IBS are not. And so to me, what Doug's doing is kind of an example of what EEBA is doing in the industry. We're too small to save the planet, but we can certainly point the way. And then when you get as old as I am, and I am over 39 years old, you're not going to live long enough to save the planet. So why? And the answer is, for me, that there's no better mission if you want a life of meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the EEBA mission does for our builders. Is this is a life of building worth living. And it will someday.
You know, Gene, my absolute favorite band is a punk rock band called The Clash, and they were far more than a punk rock band. But at one point, for about a 3-year period, they were known as the only band that matters. And right now, this is the only mission that matters. Right? Yeah, we got to deal with COVID. There's going to be another COVID. There's going to be other stuff. The only mission that matters is we've got to do a hell of a lot more, a hell of a lot faster. And we can't do it unless we do it together. Anyway, I will take questions, honestly.
We've got a couple. Anybody have a question in the room? Otherwise, we've got some online.
I think I've overwhelmed them.
So one of the things we get this all the time. Oh, sorry. Oh, great.
So how do you take your mission to IBS? Do you have any ideas about that? Because there's going to be so much change coming in the next 8 years. You know, I heard earlier that Denver has to have zero energy by 2023 or 2024. But this is just the beginning, and we need IBS and everyone else to start doing this. So what kind of ideas do you have to leverage that? Don't bury yourself in the box. No.
We got to put the box aside. So we've got a young lady here that's from IBS, well, from the National Home Builders, and I'm really glad that she was able to hear our message, and hopefully she's able to go back and say, hey, there was this crazy guy down at EEBA, and you maybe want to hear about this because there's some stuff coming pretty fast, and we might want to have a peek at this.
Yeah.
So it's leveraging, it's putting the wedge in and giving it a shove.
Well, if I can add to it, you know, we talked to a lot of the organizations. We're so happy to have NAHB here with us. And there are, and I will tell you from our position, there are things that DOE says to us, or EPA, or NAHB, that they say, we politically can't say that right now. We can't do it, but you go. We're so happy you do. And you've got to keep going because we're going to catch up to you later on. So I feel like that's part of the answer, is that we're the ones that we're not hindered. We can move forward quickly. And I think we're going to point the direction for others that follow. So it's going to come. It's happening right now, right? Gene or Doug, any comments on that?
Well, you know, I feel like we're at an inflection point. I was sharing this earlier. I've said a couple times that I can't get through a Wall Street Journal without reading 3 or 4 articles about ESG. And I had to go educate myself, well, what is that? And I think tomorrow we're going to get announcements from the SEC and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency about the lending incentives that will be put in place in order to move the country towards a carbon neutral by 2050 goal, which is the Paris Treaty goal. You know, Exxon says we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. Well, that date is the Paris date. And I think what we're going to see is more of I think that the Biden administration is going to ram ESG down Wall Street's throat. And I think the money is going to start to change the way they look at the people in this room. We have been an afterthought. We're stuck building more expensive buildings at a higher cost of funds. And we have to compete against the big boys. And that's why this room is this size, because it's a very difficult challenge. And my hope and belief is that we're at an inflection point where Wall Street, it's kind of like when a building code changes, so the whole industry has to move. Well, that's happening to capital right now. And I'm, by the way, my predictions are usually really bad, but that's my prediction, is that we're going to see a sea change happening under our feet, and it's going to be driven by money. And so the money is hunting for something that's a qualified ESG investment. This room is E. We're already there.
Gene, there's a major change happening, not just with banks, and this is why the chief sustainability officer is going to be important. They're going to start asking for these types of reports probably within 12 to 24 months. Right. For funding of projects. And I've got some pretty big projects coming. I'm going to need the money. I can't float it myself. But it's also insurance investment companies that their portfolio is at risk to climate change. And so they're going to be divesting their money into portfolios that will make them money. And we just heard anecdotally a few weeks ago that in the fire zones out west in Canada, homeowners are basically now being told it's $1,000 a month or you don't get insurance. So you want to talk about affordability? I don't know, Joel, if you're hearing some of those same stories or not, but you know, I remember a few years ago, and I was speaking with David Horton from CHBA, and this is a shared file between David and I. He said, Doug, I'm really worried because we just got off the phone and had a conversation with a reinsurer who's from Germany, one of the big outfits. He says, Fort McMurray can't happen again, in his German accent. And David says, well, I hope it doesn't happen again. He says, no, It can't happen again. We can't afford it. If it happens again, we'll leave. If you can't have reinsurers, it means you can't have homeowners insurance. And if you can't have homeowners insurance, a lot of homeowners can't get a mortgage. What do you think that does to our industry? So we have a really serious vested financial interest in getting this right, because you are going to start to see mortgages shift and insurances shift, that you can't get insurance unless you're building sustainable. It's that important, and it's going to happen very fast.
Well, then I would add then that on the S side, that's what Doug's doing. So it's environment, social, and governance is what ESG stands for. And a huge part of the social piece is, what are you doing to make it better? And that's one of the reasons we asked Doug here today to talk to everybody, because he's got the E and he's got the S. And how do you get the G? Well, I think it's a little more complicated for a private company. You know, if you're a public company, you want independent boards of directors and you want accountability within your organization. But if you're a private, I think we can just really demonstrate, how do we treat our people? How do we govern our business on a day-to-day basis? And you know, Doug loves his people. And you know, why is he getting HVAC laborers? Because he's offering insurance and all of the things that they probably weren't getting from the subcontractor. And so my take is that if the financial momentum is moving towards ESG, we need to be prepared to be the likely beneficiary of that, not just because we can make more money, but because we can put better houses out at scale into the country. And that's why we had the ESG and the decarbonization sessions. That's why we had the guy from Yale trying to explain, well, what is ESG? Because I needed that. I didn't know what it was. And that's going to be EEBA's direction going forward, where it's not just going to be about energy efficiency. It's going to be about setting the table for our community to have a bigger impact in the world. And I believe it will happen through the financial incentives that will come as a result of the push to catch up for the last 4 years.
So Gene, you mentioned the G, and Aaron, that's really the Chief Sustainability Officer and their reporting requirements. So I'll make this commitment with EEBA that as we get going on that and delve deeper into it, we will share our files with you on what we're doing, so that others can maybe build upon it better.
Fantastic. Well, we've got 2 more minutes. Do we want one more question, kind of a final question from anyone?
I have never done this sort of room before, man. That's pretty crazy.
I think it's a great spot to end it right here. So Gene and Doug, I'd like to just thank you for your leadership and your guidance and your sharing your heart and soul with all of us. So thank you so very much.
That's good.